Glad you're all here. We'll start in a minute.
Yeah, both you and Virginia.
Nothing?
Yeah.
What? It works?
Yeah, you gotta be with her.
It's a miracle. What did you do?
Don't get miracles.
It works. What did he do?
So everyone will do Stone and Virginia will do
The lighting stuff. Who's doing who?
April's doing or who's
April. That's John. And then, who's lighting? Which one? Calendar sheet at the beginning, calendar sheet at the end. Good. Yeah, I love that thing. I love it. I want to know how to play it. Yeah, my friend has something like that. He does national things.
Hey, Kelly, do we have any more of the second, the Article 2 buttons? Okay. I'll make some more. I gave mine to Cal and I thought, is there something that... Okay. I'll make some more too, just so people want them. Because I figure we can put them maybe by the front. Okay. If I remember. I'll make a couple dozen. How's DC? You were in DC, right? Oh, Denver. Why did I... Okay. Oh, good.
Good morning. Welcome here in the sanctuary and online to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. Now we are on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native Americans. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. I'm the minister here. My pronouns are he and they. Yesterday, some of you were doubtless at the Mabon service that UU pagans celebrated here, the Harvest Festival, and last week was the beginning of Sukkot, which is the 8-day Jewish festival that celebrates the fall harvest. I am very excited to bring you today's worship service, an invitation to deep listening. We have some guest musicians, Steve Sanderson and Azariah Moses, who are accompanied by our very own Tim Berneman, and our worship associate is John Motter. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning. Thanks, Reverend Ben. And as Reverend Ben said, I'm John, and my pronouns are he, him, his. If you want a church that believes school curriculums should include the history and contributions made by BIPOC individuals, that the right to vote should not be suppressed, and that honors and supports you on your spiritual journey, then I have some good news. You may have found your church home.
Thanks, John. I heard a beautiful sound just now, and it was the sound of children. We are very excited when children are in our midst. Anyone who wants to can go to your religious education classes now, but next week we'll feature an all-ages service, so the children will not only stay here the whole time, those who are able, but they will be participating in leading the service.
We have two announcements for today. First, there will be a time with the minister in the library, which is a little room just outside the door from Gilmore Hall. It's immediately after worship, and all are welcome. These are sponsored by the Committee on Ministry.
And then after that, I hope you come to that after the coffee hour and that from 12 to 2 in Conway South. I'm really excited for this event. Collective Liberation as a Spiritual Practice. It's co-sponsored by the UU St. Pete Animal Ministry, the Racial Justice Team, and the Bodily Autonomy Team. We were just handed a third announcement. It's quite long, so unfortunately we can't get into all of it, but let me just tell you that there is a climate change summit, climate change revival. Much of the UUA is doing that this weekend. We are doing it next month, October 19th and 20th, so see the green team if you want to participate in that or ask any questions. Hey, where's our green team members?
Where's Amy?
Not here. Find green team members and then ask them about it.
Please read the rest of your announcements in the order of service in our weekly newsletter that goes out on Friday nights and on the TV in Gilmore during coffee hour. We do not mandate masks, but we welcome mask wearers, and if you'd like one, they're available at both of the entrances.
Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we're people of diverse beliefs, but we do share a common faith that every person, every being is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, and that we are connected to one another and to the earth. I'll talk about this more in the later section. So whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here.
We want to give a special welcome to any newcomers. If you are new to UU St. Pete, or even relatively new, can you give us a wave? Well, welcome. If you'd like, you can briefly introduce yourself. Reverend Ben will bring the microphone to you so that those on YouTube can hear. You're under absolutely no obligation. Some people get terrified by this, but if you're willing, we'd love to hear from you.
Now, my rule is I go to people whose hands are up, but if someone else is volunteering for them, I'll wait for their hand to go up.
Welcome. My name is Pat Harborchuk, and I'm glad to be here.
Welcome, Pat.
Okay, the hand went up.
She wants me to talk for her. Is that okay? This is Jordan. She's too shy to speak up, but she's my new friend, and I brought her to church with me today.
Welcome, Jordan.
Hi, I'm David Gelman. I've been here a few times, and it's good to be back. I moved to St. Petersburg in July, and very, very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Norma Caltagirone, and I'm here at the invitation of my friends Virginia and Cal Fox. Thank you for inviting me. Look forward to the
Welcome.
service.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for silencing your cell phones. It's our time to greet our neighbor, so remember to get consent if you're going to hug or shake hands as we take a moment to greet each other.
Please rise as you're willing and able for our first hymn. It's number 1012 in the Teal hymnal, When I Am Frightened.
I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me, sing to me quietly? Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me, stand by me willingly? Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me, comfort me, tenderly, will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
And
Please remain standing. Oh, go ahead.
Remain standing for our chalice lighting.
Oh, now it's me. The flaming chalice is a reminder that we choose to focus here together for this time today, and that we believe such time is sacred. Thank you, Cal, and thank you, Virginia, for lighting our chalice. And I invite you to say our covenant out loud. The words, for those of you who are new, are in the order of service, and feel free to follow along with the two hand movements. We got hands to the heart and then hands reaching out, like you're serving. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. You may be seated.
Our reading this morning is a quote from Valerie Kaur. Deep listening is an act of surrender. We risk being changed by what we hear. Empathy is cognitive and emotional, and to inhabit another person's view of the world is to feel the world with them. But I also know it's okay if I don't feel very much for them at all. I just need to feel safe enough to stay curious. The most critical part of listening is asking what is at stake for the other person. I try to understand what matters to them, not what I think matters.
Thank you, John, for that reading. And we've come to the time in our service for, joys, sorrows, and concerns. And I'm already choked up. Those of you on YouTube Live, if you can hear me, that's not thanks to me. That's thanks to Robert and Kathy, our volunteers to do the live stream. We're having trouble with the audio this morning. Please submit your joys, your sorrows into the text chat. And those of you who haven't filled out cards, there's still a few seconds to fill out a card, but you've given some to us already. Thank you, April, for placing a stone in the water for each one that was submitted this week.
Right.
And I have the first one?
So you skipped ahead. The stone and the water for each one that's submitted this week. If you have additional cards, bring them up now or have somebody bring them up for you.
So our first stone is a stone of joy. Now, in this time, we try to appreciate the many folks in our community who work hard on the ministry of this congregation. And today's appreciation goes to Steve Sanderson? Is that who? Oh, this guy. Steve Sanderson, when he's not making beautiful music up here, volunteers on our membership team and once a month in religious education. We appreciate you. We love you, Steve.
Next, a stone of sorrow from Reverend Ben, who lost a friend, Josh Silver, this week. Josh and Ben walked across the United States on the Great Peace March in 1986. Josh will be missed.
Thank you. A stone of sorrow from Basha Shamberg on the continuous murder of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank.
A stone of concern from Laura. I am having surgery this Wednesday. All will be well. I'm in great hands and surrounded by my large, loving family and many dear friends.
That's all I have, John.
Okay. We will place the final stone for...
Sorry, okay. I didn't know if you had any more. So let's bring to mind and let's hold close to our hearts for a second. Josh Silver, my friend, his family, and his friends, the people in the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and Laura. If you want to identify yourself, Laura, we can be. Hi, Laura. send love to you as you come up on this surgery on Wednesday. You're not alone. And we do have one more.
Yep, we got a late arrival. So a stone of joy from Chris McDonald. Happy Maybon, happy fall equinox.
Happy Maybon.
Despite everything, we've gotten to another milestone on our journey around the sun.
There's a lot of us who are known. There's a lot of us who are unknown to us, who are facing challenges, who are facing health concerns. Let us hold them in our hearts. And let's read our responsive reading, which is written by John Motter.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day. Rather, may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world.
May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter. The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there if we continue to strive for basic human rights.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
Now, it is a mystery that we are connected even when we feel apart. So let's rejoice in this beloved community that makes of the many one. And let's take about a minute of silence together. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
If I could have $1 for every time I disagreed with someone because of not understanding what they were saying, then I'd be a truly wealthy man. It's not that I'm not listening to someone. It's just that I'm not always deeply listening or effectively listening to the conversations I'm having with others. And I would argue that probably most of us would be really wealthy if we were getting $1 for every time we misunderstood someone. And there are good reasons for this. Listen to these statistics. 85% of our learning is through listening. 75% of the time, though, we are preoccupied or busy during the conversations with others. Our brains think 12 to 24 times faster than we hear the words. And we don't like silence and can last less than 10 seconds before having to break that silence. So you have probably already thought through this, what I just said, and want to tell me that it's early on a Sunday morning and that you can't deal with statistics. And that's really a valid opinion, except for the fact that you thought that after just the first one, and I gave you 3 more. So let me repeat it all. Most of us are not good at truly listening to what someone is saying to us. Pretty much summarizes it. This past weekend, about 50 of you participated in the UUA Startup Workshop and Potluck. With the help of Kathy McGowan from the UUA Southern Region, we looked back at our history. We explored our past with a focus on how the events in our history have affected us spiritually and emotionally. Many times, Kathy said, "I don't need to know the specifics of what happened in order to understand your congregation. I understand your congregation because of how you are describing the feelings or the atmosphere of the church at the time you're experiencing those different highs and lows." The life and history of UUSP is not unique from that of many organizations, countries, or people. Over its history, there have been periods of growth and excitement. All is great, and then something happens. The minister and his wife are killed in a car train accident. A minister leaves just 2 years after being settled because he and his husband realize that Florida does not make a great place to raise a family as 2 gay men. A minister decides to relocate out of state, but disagrees with some points provided in his exit evaluation. The specifics are different in each case, but the pattern of congregational behavior is very similar. Each of these events resulted in periods of difficulty due to divisions in the congregations, members leaving the church, breaking of covenant, mistrust, the need to rebuild. I would say that all of these situations could have been much different if we, as a church, as individuals, were better at deep listening, especially to those with whom we may have differing opinions. If we can center ourselves in love and live our values from that very special place, then we can break this pattern of ups and downs. Audre Lorde said, "It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." I would say that we can't do that unless we can truly listen to one another. It's not my role to impose my values on you by saying your way is wrong. It's my role to listen openly to why you feel that way. What in your life has led you to feel the way you do? What does this look like in real life? Well, the last couple weeks have been a little bit rough around the house. Let's just say the tensions have been a little bit high. There's been too much to do and not enough time to do it. Mom's been having difficulty with the neuropathy in her hands. The house is a little torn up because of replacing some porch screens with windows. And then the gathering last weekend meant that I left Mom home all alone all day on Saturday. I had several obligations that meant I had little free time. I took Mom for her annual Medicare checkup. We had already planned on asking for in-home physical and occupational therapy, and Mom's checkup actually all went good, and the doctor did order the PT and the OT for the house. This would not only help her physically, but it would provide her with additional interaction with people other than just me, and it would provide a respite for myself. It really sounded like a win-win situation. We made it through the busy weekend without being too exhausted, and I woke up Monday morning thinking it was going to be a great week. The therapists would be coming, and that would be a helpful thing, only it wasn't. Mom hadn't been eating, and so I asked her to weigh herself. She was down 6 pounds in a 5-day period. That was stressful to me. She was complaining about the 2 therapists and how she thought it would be too much for her to handle, and so I offered to cancel one of them. No, 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 don't do that, don't do that. I could see how the day was going to be. Nothing was going to be right, regardless of what I said. And so I was a little bit angry, but I didn't say anything. I was thinking lots of things, but I didn't say them. It took about 1 more hour before it happened. My mom said something, and it was a final straw. It doesn't matter that I can't remember what was said. All I knew was that I was afraid of blowing my stack and yelling at her. I caught myself. I stormed back to my room, locked myself in the bathroom, and called my brother Bill. Bill did it all right. He listened to me rant. There were a few mm-hms, okays, then whats. Basically, he just listened. And then finally, he said, "Do you want me to call her and talk to her?" And I said yes. Eventually, I went back out into the kitchen. Mom was in the living room, and she apologized for her attitude of the previous days. I accepted it. Crisis was averted, and since then, Mom seems to have gotten a new attitude. She hasn't been wearing the therapy gloves on her hands because they're feeling better from the therapy. I've had more patience. No one has been upset. No one has needed to apologize. So what's the lesson to be learned, and who learned it? These are my thoughts. For one, I wasn't really listening to her. I was tired, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. What was going on in my mind as she was saying this to me? First, I was barely awake. I had just come out from my bedroom, and what I was hearing her say was, "No good morning, let's just go straight to what's wrong with the day." I complained about my hands and how much they were bothering me, but now I'm going to complain about the potential solution. And no matter what you suggest, I'll tell you why it won't work. The reading says that the most critical part of listening is asking what is at stake for the other person. I wasn't doing that for my mom. So what I didn't hear was, I woke up and my hands were already hurting. I'm 91, and things aren't going to start working any better. But how much worse will they get? I don't like change, and now I've got to adjust to physical therapists coming and an occupational therapist coming, and they're coming into my space, and I don't know the schedule. I don't know how often they're going to come or how difficult the work will be. And you know I overthink things, so why would this be any different? This is really a simple example of what it takes, but I think it makes good points. Mom just wanted to get things off her chest. It wasn't that she wouldn't do the therapy. It wasn't that she didn't want the solution. She just needed me to listen. And I couldn't. Not that day. Maybe she wanted some feedback, but I didn't even wait to get that far. I wasn't really thinking about her. It was all about me. I knew my day was going to be full, and her problems were going to take up my time. And I passed judgment on whether her problem was even a problem. Most people are conflict adverse. I was upset and afraid of losing my temper, and so I ran. That actually was a good thing I did. I wanted to handle the problem, but I knew I needed a mediator. And therefore, I called my brother Bill to unload on what I was feeling, and he made the offer to mediate. Apply this situation to an issue within the church. I mean, we're mother and son. We're in a loving relationship. What happens when it gets a little bit more complicated? Coming from a place of love was a given. The congregational problems typically involves more people than just two. Parties may be from very diverse backgrounds with different beliefs. And what if I'm wrong? I'll look bad in front of the congregation. It just means that deep listening is all the more crucial. deep listening puts us in a vulnerable position. It puts us in a vulnerable position. But that position has great payoff in terms of growth. Most things are not a simple this or that solution. Sticking around and working towards a solution means that everyone will experience growth and change. It may take a mediator. It may take some time. Some people may choose to go a different route, and that is their right. Most people are conflict avoiders. I don't know about you, but I'd rather not have to have an argument. But if we avoid the conflict, it doesn't solve the underlying problem. We just move on, pretending that everything is just fine. But with deep listening, from a place of love, we can work through the problems and arrive at a new place with a stronger foundation and better support for all of us. Thank you.
The words to this are on the back of your insert. That's what
Check, check. Okay. Well, I'm walking, traveling blue. I'm walking, traveling blue. Gonna get there, paying my due. Got some justice, got some love, got some freedom up above. Got some justice, got some love, got some freedom from up above. Gonna get there, paying my due. There's diversity, equal rights, UUSP for the fight. Just be equal rights, UUSP and for the fight. Gonna get there, paying my due. Walking, traveling blue. Yes, I'm walking, traveling blue. Gonna get there, paying my due. Gonna get there, paying my due.
Thank you, Azariah. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, John. See, we might as well listen to one another. We're going to run into each other anyway. I'll be in a receiving line a few minutes from now, and you're going to walk by me. I'll be in the time with the minister in the library, in the workshop at noon. And when we run into each other, we have a choice. We can listen, respect, value, see one another, or not. Now, you heard about my friend Josh Silver last week, and he was about my age. Many of you have lost someone. We collectively have lost several recently in this congregation. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. UU Reverend Dennis McCarty says today fades before we can even touch it. And in the now, this only time that we're guaranteed, the now, we have that choice. Do I listen? Do I listen deeply or not? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, let's listen. It won't surprise you to know I'm in the pro-listening side of this controversy. But I do understand that there are barriers to listening, like John talked about, fatigue, capacity. And there are barriers related to personal trauma, barriers related to social identities and power imbalances, barriers related to safety. Valerie Cower's words earlier, I just need to feel safe enough to stay curious. And John talked about our church history and our various collective traumas our particular group has suffered through the years. Listening, though, can actually heal the trauma, can help us undo power imbalances. In the next few minutes, I'll explore the concept of deep listening to oneself as well as to others as a way to heal, as a way to live fully in the present. And I'll use the early life of Ralph Waldo Emerson as an example of both. But first, I'm going to turn down my channel because I'm hearing a little edge of feedback. Excuse me. Now, practicing deep listening can be hard on Sundays. It's usually this like one person talking or one or two people singing, and you're all doing the listening, sometimes deeply, sometimes less than deeply. And we do our best to listen during coffee hour, but some of us can't hear in that room. And some of us are afraid of milling around bigger groups like that. And with this in mind, the Committee on Ministry did start hosting these times with the minister in the library. So this is a smaller group, a little quieter, where we have more time to practice deep listening. And another good place for deep listening are our covenant groups. I'm looking around, and many of you are in active covenant groups. And for those who aren't, this is a small group ministry that takes place usually in someone's house or here in the church. The facilitators share the airtime, provide a lesson or a question, usually from our Soul Matters curriculum, and they are wonderful places to get to know a subset of the larger group. Some of these groups have room in them, and our Keith Kenny, where's Keith? Keith in the back is starting a new one. Now, before I say more about listening, for all of you who raised your hand as newcomers, a word about Unitarian Universalism. And maybe you already know this, but we do not have a creed. We don't demand certain beliefs in any kind of supreme being or in the afterlife or any of the things that most churches kind of say we believe in this. In this church, we don't have that. We do have shared values, and one of those is the value of pluralism. So many of us are probably sitting next to someone with a different spiritual belief than you have different beliefs about God or goddess or any kind of supreme being existence. And that makes it all the more important that we do what John suggested. Listen deeply. Rather than focusing on me, focusing on you. Susan Gore, what are your spiritual beliefs? I'm very interested. Approach it with curiosity. If you join a Unitarian Universalist church thinking my belief system is the only good one, you probably won't fit in that well. Now, John quoted Audre Lorde earlier. It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And John said we can't do that unless we truly listen to one another, and I agree with him. In fact, our lack of creed to me means our covenant more necessary. So how we treat one another becomes even more important, with deep listening as part of that covenant. At the very least, recognize, at most, or even better, to accept, and best still, to celebrate those differences. And most of our members agree to abide by our covenant, agree we should treat one another with respect, cherish, celebrate, accept. And yet we still sometimes have conflicts, as John suggested. Picture that, right? In a church community, we have conflicts. Who knew? And for the 3 years that I've been here, the little more than 3 years I've been here, we have resolved these conflicts in a few ways. One, folks work it out amongst themselves. Two, folks work it out with help from me or someone else. And three, folks stay mad and avoid the other person or forget about it or leave the congregation. Now, John worked out his conflict with help from his brother Bill. When two people work it out with help from me, which I've done several times, I meet with them, usually in my office. We agree to a set of ground rules. Usually it includes a recognition of what we share, which is, among other things, a commitment to this community. We have agreements like we won't interrupt one another, and the most important agreement is this. Both parties agree to summarize the other person's argument before moving on to stating their own. One of them goes first, but then the second person's job, let's say Tim is mad at John. He's not, by the way, I'm making this up, but let's say Tim is mad at John and they have me in for mediators. So Tim will say, this is why I'm mad at you, John. And John's job then is not to say, well, this is why I'm mad at you. It's to say, Tim, what I hear you saying is da-da-da-da-da. And Tim then can say, yes, that's it. Or, well, you got most of it, but you missed this other thing. And we don't continue until John feels heard, is heard. Only then does John get to say, my perspective, this, and then Tim has that job. That's deep listening. It's hard, but it's beautiful and brilliant when it works. When you don't agree with what the other person is saying, you're committed enough to listen and summarize anyway. That's beautiful. We don't require a creed, but we do require this level of commitment to deep listening to one another, to be a member here. Now we're in the process of forming a right relations team, so it won't be just me doing the mediation. And that takes some of the load off of me and also provides a resource for when the conflict is with me. Yeah, people have conflicts with me too. I know you're surprised. So what makes this hard? Why aren't we always listening to each other and loving? And why aren't we, why didn't John just, why does this happen? That we're not always at our best? Well, again, because of the fatigue. It could be a trauma response. Maybe I don't listen to you because you remind me of the kids who bullied me in 6th grade. And not listening can be a response to patriarchy. So I was raised male, was taught to not to listen, but state my opinion and expertise, seeming manly. I was taught that girls and women are there as companions to my main character in the story. I was taught to objectify girls rather than listen to them. Now I know better and can do better. And as the bumper sticker from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom puts it, I can listen to women for a change. Not listening can be a response to white supremacy culture. I was raised in a time when my country's leaders were white, newscasters were white. I was taught that BIPOC stories didn't matter. Remember, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, people of color. I'll go back to my 6th grade bully example for a second, and the theory that it is a trauma response to not listen. So again, Valerie Cower tells us I just need to feel safe enough to stay curious. Healing from trauma can allow me to listen even to people who remind me of my 6th grade bullies, and the listening process itself can lead to more healing. Instead of feeling threatened or defensive by someone else's thoughts and experience, which are different from my own, when I'm healing, I can feel curious about that experience, about those thoughts. But sometimes I don't even listen to my own inner voice. And this is an example of, I think, the fawning response to trauma. Those of you who know the 4 responses to trauma: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I see some nods. So I'm being held captive by someone, and as a response, I fawn on them. I've never had such an attractive captor. You're so beautiful. You know, I listen to everything I say. I no longer trust my own thoughts. I replace my thoughts with theirs as an understandable survival tactic. And some churches encourage this kind of thing. Let us do your thinking for you. Very few people come to this church for that, or to Unitarian Universalist churches for that. Let me do your thinking for you. If you have, though, please trust your own thinking and know that I believe in you. Ideally, we heal from our trauma enough to deeply listen, to come from that place of curiosity, to listen to the precious truths within ourselves and within other people, within the world. We approach our truths, the still small voice, as the Quakers say, within ourselves with curiosity, with love, with compassion. And the same goes with others. Now, I've talked to you before, those who aren't new, about Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was one of our founding fathers, so to speak, of Unitarianism and Transcendentalism in the 1800s. I haven't found much writing about his early life, but I do know his existence was really shaped by early loss. So Emerson's father died of cancer when Emerson was just under 8 years old. Emerson's first wife, Ellen Louisa Tucker, died of tuberculosis after they'd been married only 2 years. And she was sick much of the second year of that marriage. Emerson visited Ellen's grave every day. He writes about it. He says he opened it once in his writings. He spent time in that beautiful natural graveyard and the other quiet wooded places around the Boston area in the early 1800s. And it was soon after Ellen's death that he began to question many basic church practices, including the most basic practice of communion, what they called the Lord's Supper. And as a young minister, Emerson eventually refused to do that, this basic church practice of communion, which led him away from traditional ministry and towards his subsequent life as an author, as a lecturer, as a traveler, as a founder of Transcendentalism, the belief that humans can connect with the divine directly through nature. It's hard to imagine young Emerson with these losses in his life, going every day to this peaceful graveyard by his wife's gravestone, listening to the birds, listening to the wind in the trees. It's hard to imagine that, but I have daily experienced nature connecting me with a presence I call divine. And I know some of you have too. It happened about an hour ago as I was putting the finishing touches on this in my office. I have a little bird feeder attached to my window, and 2 peace doves came up. There they were, staring at me. I can imagine his heart breaking on his knees in that graveyard. Maybe that helped him by listening, by connecting with nature. Maybe that helped him listen to his own still small voice. Maybe that listening helped him discern, I'm not going to do this. It doesn't feel right. Being a minister in this way does not feel right. I'm going to do something else. That connection to nature and the natural world, I'm fairly sure we'll talk more about in the workshop at noon. John said, deep listening puts us in vulnerable positions, but the payoff is growth. He says, with deep listening from a place of love, we can work through the problem and arrive at a new place with a stronger foundation to support us. If you truly trust and listen deeply to your own still small voice, who knows what you can accomplish? If you truly trust and listen to the voices in one another, who knows what we can accomplish together? Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
I was thinking they were just doing a song, not the offering song. So we gather here to learn and strive together. Let's now offer what monetary gifts we're able to ensure that we take care of this place. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received.
I've been smiling lately, thinking about the world as one, and I believe it could be. Someday it's going to come. Get your bags together, go and bring your good friends too, 'cause it's getting nearer. It soon will be with you. Peace train sounding loud, high on the peace train. E-I-E-I-O-I, come on the peace train. Now come and join the living. It's not so far from you, and it's getting nearer. It soon will all be true. It's out on the edge of darkness. There lies a peace train. Peace train takes this country. Come take me home again. I'll train sounding louder. Hide on the peace train. E-I-E-I-O-I, come on the peace train. Peace train, holy roller. Everyone jump on the peace train. E-I-E-I-O-I, come on the peace train.
What is given freely we receive with great joy, and we say thank you. Please rise as you are able for hymn number 318 in our gray hymnal. It's our closing hymn, We Would Be One.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one now and toward tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. We pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
You may be seated.
Our closing words are from A Listening That Leads by Reverend Joe Cleveland. May we be a people of deep listening, committed listening, a listening that leads to healing, a listening that leads to wholeheartedness, a listening that helps us grow in compassion, a listening that helps you discern an action for justice making that you can make, a listening that nurtures a self-change. May you find your practice of listening to be a blessing for yourself. May your listening be a blessing to others. Listen. Now please remain seated as Tim plays our postlude.
Tim Berneman. We invite you to follow along with the hand gestures. It's boop, boop, and boop. As Virginia and Cal extinguish our chalice, the words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Please join us in Gilmore Hall. It's right there for coffee and conversations. We hope this worship service will help you through your week. We'll help you remember you are not alone. Blessings, everyone.